So here we have a Skoda Fabia. The window's dropped, customers put a plastic sheet on it. We can hear, with the ignition on, the grindy, crunchy sort of motor sounding like the cables from the regulator have come adrift, and they're getting chewed up. So quickest way is obviously remove the door card so we can have a look inside. Skoda Fabia is pretty simple. So you've got 3 Torx screws at the bottom of the door here that you need to remove, and then you can move the lower portion of the cover off. Then you need to take this switch assembly off. A nice thin pry tool under here should release the clips, and once you've taken that off, you should see underneath your access points to the next screws in order to remove the door card. Okay, so after removing the posi screws from there, you want to unclip this, and behind there is a single Torx screw. I don't know if you can pick that up, and I'll show you the next stage after we've got that one off. Okay, so we've taken the Torx screw out of this white portion here, which will allow this to move. Now we need to remove this top section that will come adrift, and there should be one more bolt hidden in here. So just give me a moment. Go, and you'll see you've got one more posi Phillips screw in here that we need to remove, and that will allow the door card to come off. So you'll see that the courtesy light I pulled through, release the plug from that, post that through. We've already taken the plug off of this for the switch assembly. That's been posted through. Now we're just going to remove the plug for this. In fact, I can probably post that through as a whole, but just to tidy things up, keep it tidy, I'm just going to remove that clip and remove this, which means most of our electrics should be off. You should have one in this corner, possibly for this little light here, and we'll have a Bowden cable that runs across that we'll need to disconnect from the back to separate it from the handle assembly, and the door card should be able to swing forward and lift up over this edge here and release the door card. So after disconnecting the cable for the side for the central locking little light, you'll see everything's disconnected, no cables, just the Bowden door cable here connected. And you'll see around the back here, there's usually a way I can get the camera on it. Sorry about the angle, but just to pull that sleeve from out of that collar there, swing it round, and you can lift that up and out the little hammerhead from the whole portion here. And now the door card is completely removed from the vehicle, and you've got good access. Unfortunately, it doesn't get any better with these vehicles. As you can see, you've got this metal plate along the inside that is riveted to the door. So each of these rivets that hold in the plate will now need to be drilled, poked through, so we can remove the plate from the door. The motor is currently, it's got a sprocket on the other side that integrates with the mechanism or the regulator, and obviously we know that the motor is working because we can hear it. We can always check that by disconnecting this and seeing that the motor drives up and down as it should do, and the problem is with the regulator behind it. Right, in this case, because the window's dropped and the window's attached to the mechanism, and we need to raise the window to these 2 points here, which allow us to get to the clamps that hold the glass to the mechanism. Unfortunately, we're going to need to find a way to drive the window up manually if we can, and obviously the motor causes resistance for that. So you want to take out the Torx screws that hold the motor in and disengage the motor, and you can just see from behind all the cabling has wrapped itself around the motor there, but that's not a problem. Once we disengage the motor, we can lay it to one side, and you can see the cable's hopefully a bit freer now, so that we may be able to drive the window up, because the window is currently attached to this plate, and until we get the window up, disconnected and held up and out the way whilst we work down here, you're not going to get this assembly off. So it does get tricky at this point in some occasions, but let's see if we can now find a way to get our fingers on the window. We may need to even partially remove the plate because the window is right in. We just get our fingers to it here. We may be able to just, here we go, try and start to wiggle it upwards so we can get the points on the glass that are right down here at the moment over these. So I would probably say take these rubber bungs out first so you can see in, and get the window up to a point where you can access the screws to remove the glass. Okay, if your glass doesn't come up like mine wasn't because of all of this was wrapped around, you've got to try and free this. I actually found it was kind of tied in a knot. Managed to free as much of the cable as possible, and then jerking the glass upwards, I've now managed to get the glass up. It's best to tape your glass, hold your glass. I use these very strong magnets on either side of the glass so it can't drive down, and that keeps the glass up and out of my way now. Right, you'll see the glass is about 4/5 of the way up. That's where you need it to line up the bolt holes on both sides. You can see that one much clearer. This one's just in the shade a bit, but there it is up there. Once you open these clamps, you don't need to open them completely, enough just so that the glass slips out of the gripper clamp, and when you move the glass up, this stays here. Once you've done that, the glass is detached from the mechanism that runs inside here, and the glass can stay upward whilst we work on this area and get to this mech behind. Obviously, like I said, we've got to drill all the outer rivets first, which is a pain. Golfs did this back in the day, obviously built by VAG, and also Mercedes-Benz with their C-Class 204 had this infinite wisdom to rivet this to the door. We have converted them to screws in the past, but I think in this case we will be just riveting it back as intended. But let's get it out first and see how we get on. Okay, so once all your rivets are out, it's just a case of threading through the door cable, back through this hole, and lifting this off over this grommet here and the lock. And you should be able to, one more thing, you'll probably have to take a plug out here so that the wiring loom is not attached all the way through. Okay, so you might find that the plate doesn't come off. One of the key things is this here. It's like a plastic bracket that runs across here. It's a right pain. You've got to knock these through. They're going to fall into the door. You need to rescue all 3 of those pins when you reattach this back at the end. But you have to push in the inner parts, a little bit like a rivet, which will make these hollow inside, and then they're able to squeeze and push this through, and that will allow your door card to come up and over that lock. So here is the regulator or mechanism as removed in situ from here. We have drilled the holes that hold the regulator to the plate so that we can remove it out separately. Now, once upon a time, some of the parts companies used to provide it with the plate. We're not actually 100% sure how it's coming, so we're waiting for the part to arrive so we can establish whether the whole plate goes in as one or whether the regulator needs to be riveted to this plate first. One of the things you have to be careful of in the center when you do get your new part, this is often held in with either a clip or a cable tie that you want to remove as late as possible in the job, because they are known to jump out, and then you are trying to rewind it in the right direction, and you will spend a lot of time trying to put that right. Just to also show you the 3 things that we poked out here are this plate, so you've got to get that back in, and you will have to fish out all your bits of rivets, and there's one of the black pins that go in the middle of this clip here to hold it in, so you've got to rescue all 3 of those. So it's time to have a clean up whilst you wait for your bits, and then you can move on to the reinstall. Okay, we've got our new regulator. The motor's been tested, it's all okay. As you can see, as mentioned, this has been cable tied. You want to release this cable tie at the last possible moment when this is wedged against the door in here, so that there's no way for that wheel to pop out. It's held in. If you cut it first and jiggle around, there is a huge chance, seen it before, that this portion here will jump out, it'll untwist, you'll have this huge cable, and you'll be pulling your hair out trying to get it all done and put back together. So the first stage I'm going to do is align that in the door and pop in the 4 rivets to get that attached to the door, and post through these 3 prongs through here so that it's held in, and then I'll, just before posting the last one, we'll cut the cable tie, pull out the tie, clip that in so I know that's safe, and then we'll move forward from there. Okay, so far all I've done, I've put the top rivet in for the regulator to hold that top end in. I'm going to do that top end on that side next, but I've just clipped this in. I haven't yet cut the cable tie, which is still connected. I will cut that right at the end and slip that out. Okay, once the metal plate's in, there's a couple of locators here which fit into holes. You might find it's not mating against the surface properly. It will be those locators. It has to go up and then the lower section go across. I wish I could film it, but I needed all my hands. Also be very careful of these 2 things, because where they connect to the lock actuator, like they did for me, they can pop out, which is either a complete restrip of the actuator, needing to remove part of the handle in order to get it out, or a lot of fishing around trying to get a little rod in a little hole. Luckily we've done them before, so we've kind of got a bit of a knack for getting these in. These are a bit more tricky but can be done in situ, but I'd advise being extra careful with them, and in some cases actually getting the mechanism behind here and the shield across, the sheet across, and riveting it on while it's there. There's various different ways. I'm sure once you've done one, you'll have your own methods. I'm probably on my 20th and still don't have a favoured method. But yeah, so I've put one rivet in just to hold it up here. I'll now be riveting all around the outside. You can see the loom clips have all gone back in around. I need to connect this motor and lower it ever so slightly so that my bolts are visible in here again, like they were for the removal. And then I can remove my magnets holding the glass and lower the glass into the clips and tighten the glass so that it becomes one with the regulator and mechanism again. So that's pretty much it for this video. Hope it's been helpful. Right guys, so the plates all been riveted on all the way around. We then fit the motor, careful to make sure that the sprocket lines up with the gear, and just pop it on, screw in your 3 self-tapping screws, and that will hold the motor in place. And as you can see, we've started to plug in looms wherever necessary. We've got the courtesy light, the little light that goes on the lock thing, the switchboard, and I'm going to pass on the other 2 till we get the door card. And once they're all plugged in, we can then match the door card up. We've got one more thing to do though. We now need to attach the switch to lower the assembly, mechanism assembly or regulator assembly, so those bolts line up with these holes, and then we can drop the glass into the clamps and clamp the glass to the mechanism, in which case then we can bung up the holes again and just fit the door card back together.